Urge surfing and the discussion of craving. This practice 2.2, is designed to shift the relationship to experiences of cravings or urges. To react unskillfully, example use substances, from one of fear or resistance to that of being with in a curious and kind way. The exercise invites participants to explore the many elements of cravings or urges, observing first the physical sensations, as well as the accompanying thoughts and urges, dismantling an often overwhelming experience that might typically elicit reactivity, feelings of defeat or fear, or attempts to control the experience. Participants practice a curious, compassionate approach versus a habitual or automatic reaction. They are invited to look underneath or behind the craving, underlying the overwhelming desire for a substance is often a deeper need, perhaps relief from challenging emotions, or a desire for joy, peace, or freedom. Participants are encouraged to choose a reasonable scenario for this exercise, that is, something that has been challenging or stressful, but perhaps not the most challenging situation in their lives or their biggest trigger. We often suggest that on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the hardest thing they experience, they choose something around 3 or 4. They are first asked to picture this challenging situation right up until the point at which they would typically react in some way, and then pause and observe thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations, rather than immediately falling into familiar patterns or reactive behavior. It is suggested that they bring a similar exploration and curiosity to this experience as they did with the raisin or to bodily sensation in the body scan. In many ways, this practice encompasses the core of the MBRP approach. We practice recognizing both the discomfort and the accompanying reactions, including urges to escape it or change an unwanted experience. Then, rather than falling into immediate reaction or resisting the experience, we practice pausing and observing what the urge actually feels like. We then practice approaching this experience with gentle, non-judgmental curiosity rather than defaulting to habitual reactive behaviors. The urge surfing is introduced as a metaphor to illustrate the possibility of staying present with the intensity of an urge without becoming subsumed or behaving reactively. Participants are asked to picture the urge as an ocean wave and imagine themselves surfing, using their breath as a surfboard to ride the wave. They are staying in contact with the experience but are not subsumed by it. They are able to balance and they ride the wave through its peak and its decline. We have found that although some participants find this visualization helpful in relating differently to urges, others have difficulty with either visualization or staying present with the intensity of an urge or craving. We thus present it as simply one option with which to experiment and have encouraged participants to alter and change the metaphor to suit their individual needs. The primary intention in using the metaphor is to convey the possibility of observing urges and cravings without having to act upon or fight them. This practice not only reveals the impermanent nature of craving, but it also increases participants' confidence in their ability to experience discomfort and stay present with intensity. The practice instruction also include a suggestion the participants ask themselves, what do I really need in this situation? Craving or urges to react in response to a trigger can at times be primarily physiological. However, they may also mask another emotional state such as loneliness, hurt, resentment, or feelings of betrayal with an intense desire to alleviate the discomfort. It may be a sign that our needs are not being met. When cravings or urges arise, it's sometimes helpful to investigate a little further what is really wanted or needed. We find, of course, that it's seldom the thing we're reaching for. The object of desire may be a poor substitute that satisfies us for a moment, but inevitably leaves a deeper dissatisfaction in its wake, intensifying the future cycle of desire. We begin inquiry by asking what specific physical sensations, thoughts, and emotions arose for people in this scenario, specifying that we are not so much interested in the scenario itself, but in what they noticed about their experience. We inquire whether there were emotions or sensations that felt intolerable or urges to escape the experience. Maybe this was accompanied by a thought or belief that they couldn't stand it or needed to fix it. This can help develop a curiosity about the experience, learning to relate to craving differently, perhaps even with curiosity. At this point, however, the main intention of the exercise is to offer an experiential understanding of being with the urge or craving, rather than giving in to it. Following some inquiry about experiences, it can be helpful to illustrate on the whiteboard the theory behind urge surfing. When a craving begins, it might feel as though its intensity will continue to grow until we act on it. However, if we wait it out, the craving may naturally ebb and flow like a wave, and eventually it will subside. From the facilitator. Most of us have the idea that once cravings or urges begin and there's that impulse to react, the intensity of it will continue to increase until we act on it or stop it somehow. We often imagine craving as a straight line, continuing upward until we alleviate it by using. In reality, craving is typically less like a line and more like a wave. It ebbs to a peak, and then if we wait it out, it will naturally subside. Drawing the line rising, reaching a plateau, then falling like a wave. One way to get rid of an urge or craving is to engage in a behavior, such as substance use, in response to it. We might feel relief or happiness for a while, but this is a little like trying to quench thirst by drinking salt water. You're temporarily relieved, but then you're left even thirstier than you were to begin with. Attempting the fight to craving may be another way we try to control it. However, when cravings and urges are suppressed, they often just get stronger. So what happens if instead of trying to get rid of or suppress it, We just stay with it without reacting. As we keep practicing this surfing, the intensity of the urge or craving tends to decrease a little bit, and we get better at waiting it out. And we become more confident that we're able to ride this wave without getting wiped out. Participant. Maybe that would work to wait it out once, but then the craving would just come back again. Facilitator. Sure, it probably will come back. And if you used alcohol or a drug to make it go away, wouldn't it come back too? Cravings might arise and pass many times in one day. In this way of being with the experience or surfing, we may need to be practiced over and over again. It does get a little easier, and the cravings become less intense because you're not feeding them or fighting them. Whereas we use in response to the craving, we're feeding it, making it stronger, and we attempt to fight it. We often wear ourselves down and are more likely to feel defeated and want to give up. There's often the thought or belief, I can't do this. And we're learning that we're able to do this differently, but it takes practice. You've just done it here. You've experienced craving or an urge and successfully stayed present without acting on it. Maybe it wasn't as intense as what you might encounter in the future, but just like when you were first learning to surf, you ride small waves first, you practice. Once those become easier, then you can take on bigger ones.